And so then bringing this back to this movement into integral spirituality and how that's different from what we're calling postmodern or progressive spirituality. Can you take us into that using the framework you've laid out?
Sure. Well, first of all, I should say that a common misconception is to think about us as a society as though we're all together in one group and that the leading edge of our development is the leading edge for everyone. And so the first misconception that sort of helps to kind of clarify what we're talking about is that even though consciousness has been evolving since the advent of humanity, in other words, humans can evolve their consciousness in ways that animals can't, as evidenced by the evolution of our culture and our global civilization. So it's been going on for tens of thousands of years. And the evolution of consciousness and culture is still spread out across history, across the world. So, for example, the majority of the world's population retains a center of gravity that is really pre-modern, right? In other words, even though Europe and the developed world and America and Canada, Australia, that these are all have a modernist center of gravity, that they've kind of gone beyond the Enlightenment, and places like India and China are trying to come into modernism, for better and for worse. We can see that here, even in America, that the evolution of consciousness is spread out. So we have, according to quite a bit of sociological research, about 50% of the American population has a center of gravity, or has a kind of a worldview that is centered in modernist values. About 30% are pre-modern, right? The fundamentalists, the people who are traditional religionists, people who don't believe in evolution. Those people are, clearly pre-modern in their worldview. And then, since for the last 40 years, we've seen the development of this countercultural postmodern worldview that has attempted to evolve beyond modernism. And that constitutes, who knows, maybe 20%. It's hard to draw hard lines because these aren't really types of people. They're types of consciousness within people. And so in the developed world, people typically are able to make meaning at more than one stage of consciousness, right? You might be a modernist at work, and then, at night when you hang with your cool friends, you're a postmodernist. So although some people exemplify these categories perfectly, others defy categorization. And when we look at culture and consciousness through this lens, from the integral perspective, we do our very best not to pigeonhole or stereotype or try to put people in boxes. This is more like an ocean current, right? More like than architecture. Mm-hmm. But nevertheless, consciousness is evolving, and it's not a seamless continuum, right? The dialectic is in action. So this stage conception has its limitations. It's a simplification for purposes of being able to talk about it. But the concept of a stage is easily misunderstood or made into a cartoon, characterization by its critics, who are often putting up a straw man and attacking that. So one of the main tools of this integral perspective is to recognize the dialectical evolution of consciousness and culture. So postmodernism. It's a stage. It's 20% of the United States. It's probably even larger in places like Europe and Canada. But it's still countercultural. It's not leading the developed world. Modernism is still in control. It's still in control of the government. It's still in control of the media. It's still in control largely of the academic establishment. And the postmodernism, especially the spiritual aspect of it, although it is the center of the lives of many millions of people, it still has not. It's still recognized as kind of fringe. It doesn't really have the leadership power that we would like it to have, and in some ways that's unfortunate. In other ways, it's probably good because the postmodern worldview and progressive spirituality as a subset thereof is in many ways still immature, and that's not a huge critique of it. I think it's evolutionarily appropriate after 40 years of history for this worldview, this type of spirituality to be developing.